To the Planning Commission meeting of September 8th, 2016. We'll let the record show that all of the commissioners are present and staff. If you join with me now with a salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Do we have any agenda changes today?
No changes. Just note that item E1, the appeal for Stephen Santos, 2016-1039, need to be continued because of a notice in error, so that will not be heard today.
Okay. Next up is our public comment period. If there's someone with us this morning that would like to address the Planning Commission on an land use item that is not on our agenda this morning, now would be your opportunity. Okay. Seeing no one, we are going to move to the consent agenda, which we don't have, so we can skip that and move right into our public hearings. The first being 2016-1037, appeal of rejection of commercial cannabis cultivation registration application for APN 014-030-028.
Good morning, Darcy Gillard with the Planning Department. Before you today is an appeal of a planning director's denial of a commercial cannabis registration application. The application was denied for 3 reasons. First reason being inaccurate photographic evidence, and I'll discuss each of these reasons in more detail later. The second reason were receipt that was provided had the name of an individual who was not associated with the registration application. And the third reason was due to lack of evidence to support the requested 16,355 square feet of cultivation area. The location is a 2.5 acre parcel at 2385 Wagner Road in Railroad Flat. The first piece of evidence and reason why it was denied was due to photographs. Actually, Peter, could you maybe shut some of the lights off so we could see the photographs a little bit better? So the photos that were provided were not related to the project site. And when we're looking at photographs that are presented as part of these registration applications, one of the things that we take a look at is some aerial imagery that the county flew shortly after the close of that May 10th date. So in looking at the photographs that were submitted, you can see the one on the left shows a significant amount of grading. The one on the right shows the start of what would be hoop houses for a mixed light type operation. So when we took a look at these and started digging a little bit more, we noticed that these were the same photographs that were submitted for another registration application by the appellant. And therefore these also did not match the aerial imagery that we were taking a look at on the actual site. So you can see here, let me just get my laser pointer. These are the hoop houses on the adjacent site, which is where the other registration application is located. This is the project site, the one that you are considering today for the appeal. So the photographs don't match. We don't see a significant amount of grading on this site. We don't see the start of hoop houses, which were shown in that photograph. And this photograph was taken shortly after that May 10th date. The receipts that were provided were in a name for somebody named Lawrence Rangel. And he is not associated with this registration application. There's no way to tie the sale of this soil or these other materials to this particular site. The third reasoning that this application was denied was due to the fact that we could not verify from the aerial imagery and the information that was submitted that the requested 16,355 square feet of cultivation area existed on this particular site. What we're looking for is grading activities that occurred prior to May 10th. We're looking for evidence of some sort of cultivation prior to May 10th. So when we scaled it out with our measuring tool, it looks like we could get potentially 6,000 square feet of grow area in this, on the site. You did receive some supplemental information this week. It was provided to us on Tuesday. That was emailed to you, and you should have got a hard copy today. So I took a look through that supplemental information. It was distributed to other county staff as well. And some information that was submitted. They provided some March and April receipts for wood and supplies, which was stated for repairs and improvements on the property as well as a fence. They also provided some information regarding the previous receipts, why Mr. Rangel's name was on those, and that he was associated with the registrant. He had already had some established accounts at other places like Senders, and that's why those receipts were in his name, but that those supplies were purchased for the registration site. One thing that we did know in terms of the new receipts that were provided was the March 14th Senders receipt for $573.70 is the same receipt that was submitted for the other application as well. So other information that was submitted were American Express statements showing some other purchases that were made. But it's very difficult from that to determine what supplies were purchased and if it is truly related to the project site. Some supplemental photos that were provided. This was dated March 6th, and it shows a significant amount of grading. The grading that could potentially be on one of the two sites, although the site doesn't show this type of grading. The other thing I would like to note is that there is a requirement for a grading permit. If you move 50 cubic yards of dirt or more, you're required to get a grading permit. We do not have any record of a grading permit for this particular site. Some additional supplemental photos that were provided do show some plants in the ground, one dated April 19th, one dated May 4th. And note that in that supplemental information, it was stated that these supplies were purchased for a wood fence, but at this time we're not seeing any proof of that wood fence from these photographs. And then in terms of the square footage, the registrant tried to provide some clarification, stating that when they submitted, they were directed to change the square foot to the maximum allowable. If you take a 2.5 acre parcel per the code, 15% of that would be 16,355 square feet of cultivation area. They're estimating that their original estimate was 10,500 square feet. They state that they'd be willing to agree to anywhere from 6,000 to 8,000 square feet of cultivation area. Again, this is all something provided in your supplemental information. In terms of CEQA, it does not apply to a project where a public agency rejects or disapproves. Therefore, CEQA was not done on this project. And staff's recommendation is to pass a motion to sign a resolution denying the registrant's appeal and uphold the planning director's denial of the registration application. That concludes my presentation. I can answer any questions, and I believe the registrant as well as maybe his attorney is available today as well.
Any questions of Darcy right now? No? Okay, so would the appellant like to address the planning commission or the appellant's representative?
Good afternoon. Or actually, good morning. My name is Roy Stanley. I'm the attorney for Stephen Dickinson. He's the owner of both of the parcels that were spoken about just earlier. I want to thank you first for the opportunity to be here and appeal and talk to you all about what we have going on out of the two properties. We do have some additional pictures that we can show you. We do want to walk you through the information that we submitted earlier this week. I think we submitted copies of this to everyone, and we just want to follow up first on some of the things that I think you're the planning commissioner or the planning department staff provided and spoke about. First, in regards to the additional receipts, Mr. Dickinson owns properties that are adjacent to each other. They do share common fences. They do share common, there's a fence in between. When he was doing the construction on the site on the left and the site on the right, he would buy supplies at the same time. The receipts are for, I think the total amount of receipts that we submitted was somewhere around $2,300. Most of it is for wood products. And some of that was used on the property on the left and some was used on the property on the right. Specifically, we chose those particular receipts because they have his name on the receipt because he paid with his Amex card. A lot of the supplies that they bought were paid for in cash, and as the department spoke about, he has a neighbor who has like a contractor account, so they would call and say, hey, we need a couple of yards of wood or whatever it may be. They would have it ready. They would send a worker to go pick it up with cash, and on the receipt it would state Mr. Rangel's account. Those particular receipts we submitted as a supplemental are the receipts that actually show his name, his Amex number, so we can verify that it actually was him that did the purchasing. In terms of what those particular purchases were used for, and I apologize if the copies aren't quite clear enough, but if you go to what I believe is Exhibit 1, and you look at the third page, it's a receipt, and the top line, it says storage for F&G. It's a 4x8 by 3/4 inch, I believe. Wood supplies. Those particular supplies were used for, there was a shed on the property that they had to repair. As part of the ordinance, you have to repair any existing facilities and make them up to code. Also, as part of the ordinance, you have to install, you have to keep the cultivation area not visible from the street or any public thoroughfare. And the fence they installed is on the south side of the property, adjacent to the road. We do have pictures of the fence. The only issue is they're on my iPad, and if you guys don't mind passing around this $1,000 iPad, I don't have a problem with letting you see the pictures. Is that okay?
It's up to you guys. Sure.
Okay. If there's a way that we can pull them up, I don't know if there's a way to do that, if I can email them to you or something like that.
I don't think we have time to do that.
Okay, no problem.
We would be happy to look at them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. So we do have two pictures that I'll show you. One is this is the shed that's on the property that was repaired. This is during the time of the repair. There's another picture that is of the actual fence that was constructed on the property. If you just go back before you see
Sure.
pictures. That's the fence. And if you go, I think, back, there's a picture of the shed. If you go too far back, you might see pictures of my kids. So just a couple of swipes left and right, okay?
So I'm just, what
Yes.
is the date of these photographs?
The date of those photographs, I believe, are in March, about the time that they're doing the construction. The issue is they were taken on like an older kind of generic device, and it was somewhat difficult to get all the information off. Those there we transferred through my emails. I don't know if they will show. They might, but when you transfer it, it gets a new tag. So I'm not sure if they're going to show the date on those particular photographs. Yeah, we can check in and make sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
First name Roy, last name Stanley.
Thank you, Roy.
Okay.
Ask a question.
Sure.
Sure.
The south side fence,
Yes.
is that there?
Yes.
That whole shadow is the fence.
So the fence extends along the entire, for both properties. Also, in terms of, just want to make sure that you understand, we actually submitted 3 total receipts, not just the one for 573. That was just one of the ones that we saw in the statement where we could tie it to Mr. Dickinson's name. So we submitted all the ones that we could find that had products that we knew were used for those particular facilities that had his name on it. In terms of I'll go to the square footage issue. It appears that there seems to be a little bit of confusion as to exactly what should have been on the application. The application itself states in part on, I believe it is section 8. It says the maximum total canopy area as defined in chapter 17.95 150 FF. That particular part of the ordinance describes the maximum canopy size that you have once the plants are fully grown. Coupled with that, there's also a corresponding provision. It's actually 1795 N6 that says that, or actually 1795 65 A2N, and it states that the registrant should, in applying for registration, state the maximum total canopy area that is or will be on the cultivation site. So I understand that the Planning Commission or the planner says that we should have listed the amount restricted by the provision that says it has to be graded first, but the application doesn't say that. And particularly, when he went to the counter to turn it in, he put down his rough estimate of what it was, and the information he got was that that number was too low and that it should be the 15% of your property. So there was some confusion as to what number should go there. So he put the 16,355 as that would be the 15% of his total square footage of the property, which, you know, that was what, if possible, he could get up to that amount. He didn't want to foreclose himself from being able to expand that amount by not putting down the amount on the application. It's not clear from the application form that you're supposed to put down a calculated amount based on the combination of the three different parts of the ordinance. In looking at it, he's gone and talked to the planner, I think it was Mr. Maurer, and he said that they looked at it and it's about 6,000 to 8,000 feet. 6,000 to 8,000 square feet. He's willing to accept that as being a proper measurement. He's not going to contest that issue. It's only that he was a little bit confused about what should go on the paperwork, and the form itself seems to be a little misleading as to what is actually required, because if you follow the strict language of the form, you would say, okay, well, the total maximum I can have would be 15% of my property size. But it appears that what should have been there is the amount that was completed, graded, cleared by May 10th. And he understands that now. It appears that the pictures you guys have from the aerial photographs are accurate as to that time, and he's willing to accept the 8,000 square feet or 6,000 square feet, whatever the measurement truly is, as being the upper limit of what his cultivation area can be. Was there any questions on that particular part?
Doesn't appear to be, yeah.
Excuse me?
No questions. That
Okay.
doesn't appear to be. Any questions? No.
I'm just going to move forward to the pictures that we submitted of the grading and cultivation that took place on or about, actually prior to May 10th. Thank you, appreciate that. Mm-hmm. So that's actually the site that's listed, that was on the right. Just by inadvertence, Mr. Dickinson put the same pictures. It just was a simple mistake. These are the actual pictures from that side of the property. This particular grading operation was done mainly by hand, and it's just a downslope, and they're grading it so they can make it flat to put the plants in. I don't think there was any large masses of fill imported or exported, just basically flattened out so that they could actually plant in that particular area. These photos are dated March 6th. I think we also submitted the tags on these photos because we could get them. We actually got them down from that device. They were listed on there. And just to be clear about one issue that you guys may see on the pictures of the planted cannabis, the location data says 2295 Wagner Road. That's only because the device it's not the most accurate. So I think that particular part of the property may be closer from their radars to that other property line. So it's just not the most accurate device. It's an older device they took them on, but they were able to get the date. I think honestly, if you pull it up, it doesn't say that particular address, only because it's just not a very accurate way to measure it. But if we do have additional photos of that actual site that we've taken that we can show you, they're on the iPad as well if you guys want to see them, in terms of identifying exactly where it is.
I'm sorry, are you saying the GPSing on the photos is wrong?
No, the GPS on the camera, it only gets a certain amount of area or certain accuracy. So when you plug it in, it just says
So you're saying the details of the photo are that you're standing on the other piece of property?
well, that's what it's saying, but that's not the case. Yeah, there's actually a photo. I think we had a photo of that particular graded piece with the house on the property in the background that we can show you. No, we don't have that photo. But we could submit it if necessary. We give a photo that shows from the house looking up the hill, that shows you the graded operation. So we're here to answer any questions you may have or clear up any discrepancies, any information we submitted. In closing, I think that a couple of the items were just a simple inadvertence and just a lack of true understanding of all of the components of the ordinance. In the supplemental, we actually explained that a little bit better. And I believe we submitted evidence to clarify all of the points brought up in the staff recommendation. And we're willing, Mr. Dickinson's here to take any questions that you guys may have.
Any questions right now of Mr. Dickinson or Mr. Stanley?
Not now.
We may have some.
Not yet.
We may have some in a few moments. We're going to see if anyone else would like to speak regarding this.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Is there anyone else with us that would like to discuss this appeal before the Planning Commission this morning? No one? Okay. Did you have anything else that you wanted to present at this time?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, all right, so we'll close the public hearing, back to the Planning Commission for discussion.
Well, I have a kind of a threshold problem here, and that is, it seems to me that the application as submitted by June 30 did not qualify for the reasons that the planning department has said. And so the issue I'm having is whether the commission should be considering this evidence that's submitted after June 30. Because it is an urgency ordinance and it requires the registrants to submit a complete application by June 30, 2016. And if one doesn't submit that, then the person is precluded from applying again for at least 1 year from the effective date of a permanent ordinance. That's in the ordinance itself. And it also says that the registrant must provide evidence, quote, satisfactory to the planning director, that not later than May 10th, 2016, that he or she has taken demonstrable steps towards development of the site on that parcel, being either grading or earth moving or cultivation, and one of the following: receipts for equipment and supplies and types and quantities commensurate with cannabis cultivation in the area proposed to be cultivated. Now, none of that happened. And so the issue I'm having is I don't see any provision in the ordinance that says substantial compliance will suffice. I don't see any provision for supplemental evidence to be submitted after the planning director has made his decision on the basis of what was given to him. And so that's the issue I'm having here. On the aerial photos, I don't see an ambiguity here in the ordinance about what ought to be submitted. You know, this is an urgency ordinance. It was prompted by an influx of people in the wake of the bans on commercial marijuana in all the neighboring counties. And it freezes the cannabis cultivation to the status quo prior to May 10th. That's in the ordinance. And the total canopy area, as defined in the ordinance, is the gross area of planting covered by the canopy of all marijuana to be cultivated on the parcel. That's FF, to be cultivated on the parcel. And you can't cultivate on the parcel past the grading and earth moving that was demonstrably done prior to May 10th, so the two are consistent. So I don't think there's an ambiguity there. And the provision that limits the maximum area of cultivation to 15% of the parcel area is a completely separate provision. It has nothing to do with what's going on here. I mean, nobody would suggest if your parcel was 100 acres that you should be putting down 15 acres. If that were the only issue, I would say that the applicant could reduce his request to 6,000 or 8,000, but it's not the only issue. And I'm having difficulty with the first two. So that's where I am.
It says that the mixed light permit, so it was an application for mixed light permit on this property also, and I don't see any evidence of hoop houses or anything set up for that prior to May 10th also. That's it.
Well, I think Kelly kind of hit most of the points that I was going to go off on the ordinance of 17.95, particularly the 165N. And so I don't have a whole lot to say because I think Kelly kind of covered it going point by point, and thank you for that.
I also think that Kelly hit it pretty much right on the nose. There's nothing in the ordinance that says what I could have or I should have. It's either it conforms to the conditions of the ordinance or it doesn't. And it appears to me that it didn't, at the time of submittal, it did not apply. It it wasn't complete or accurate. So I'm not in favor of the appellant in this case.
And I agree with my commissioners. I think that perhaps the applicant in hindsight should have taken greater care in preparation of the application, understanding the importance of completely filing the application in its entirety with all of the exhibits. To me, there's too many uncertainties, locations, dates, times, device failures, etc. And so I am also not in favor of the appellant's request. So is there other discussion?
Well, I guess I could add that, our job here is to do the best we can to apply the ordinance as it was written. And, I have some sympathy for somebody who comes in and is able to show, well, yes, indeed, we did in fact meet all the requirements. But the point is, it would be a never-ending process if we kept doing that. And there's a reason that the ordinance says the application has to be complete, because these decisions have to be made. And so that's where I am.
Great. So are we ready for the recommendation?
Yes.
Darcy?
Staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2016-019, denying 2016-1037 appeal, thereby upholding the Planning Director's determination to reject the application.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
If I may just, as a reminder to folks, any decision by the Planning Commission is appealable to
Right.
the Board of Supervisors within 15 calendar days of the date of this hearing.
Yes. Thank you. So next is (2016-01040) appeal of rejection of commercial cannabis cultivation registration application for APN 21-002-070. Wayisamin. Is that?
That's mine.
That's yours, Gina.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning. Gina Cathan, County Planning. We have before us today an appeal. Mr. Weiss Amin is appealing the denial of his medical cannabis cultivation registration. On June 10th, Mr. Amin submitted a registration to commercially cultivate 10,480 square feet of medical cannabis. At that time, he did submit a complete registration packet. Planning Department's review of that packet subsequent to the submittal has revealed an actual complete packet which includes key documents necessary for the issuance of a certificate of registration, such as his seller's permit, business license, in addition to the Water Quality Control Board actual permit for waste discharge. As part of the urgency ordinance requirements, all applicants for commercial cultivation must submit to a background check. Submitting a background check requires the applicant or registrant to fill out a questionnaire with the County Sheriff's Department, declaring under penalty of perjury that he or she answers all questionnaire questions truthfully. Question number 1 on the questionnaire, the registrant, Mr. Amin, actually failed to disclose an arrest on the questionnaire. Therefore, the Sheriff's Office disqualified the registrant based on that misleading information that was put on the questionnaire. Even though the arrest did not formally result in any formal charges, and while the applicant was not disqualified from registration of his medical cannabis based on any conviction of felony or misdemeanors, the code does require the applicant to provide, to not provide any false or misleading information. Based on that, the Sheriff's Office disqualified him and recommended denial of the registration. Thus, our Planning Director has the authority to invalidate the registration, which we have done, and Mr. Amin is now appealing that decision to deny his registration.
Any questions of Gina? Okay, is Mr. Amin here?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Basically, what happened was there was a misunderstanding of the terminology of the question.
I'm sorry, can you pull the mic or?
Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
So what happened was when
I'm sorry, could you state your name for the record?
Waisamin?
Thank you.
Yeah. So what happened was when I filled out the questionnaire, I just had a problem with the terminology. If the question stated disposition or no disposition, at the time I was following what the ordinance says, and I can pull up what the ordinance says right here. Yeah, right here. All applicants for a commercial medical cannabis cultivation site.
Could you tell us what section you're reading of the ordinance?
Section, let's see, right
I believe it's 165, N15.
here. 165, yes, that's what it is. Thank you. Can I read it?
Go ahead.
All applicants for a commercial medical cannabis cultivation site shall submit fingerprints and be submitted to a criminal background check conducted by the Calaveras County Sheriff. It says here that the registration may be denied or invalidated if the sheriff finds that the applicant for the cultivation site has been convicted of a felony or misdemeanor he deems to be reasonably related to the qualifications, functions, responsibilities, or duties expected of an applicant for the type of registration he or she is applying for. I don't fall into that category. I never lied on the application. It was really just a misunderstanding of the terminology that the question had asked me. I was on the way to the finger scan, and I had filled out the questionnaire, and I kind of just went off what the ordinance was saying, so I didn't really read it properly, and I do take full accountability for that. But if you read the ordinance here, I don't fall in that. I was in an arrest 10 years ago that was dismissed in court, and I've never got in trouble since then. So, everything. Oh, I also wanted to bring up the fact that I was accepted into Samuel Merritt University's nursing program. And here I have a copy of the background check that I passed. Can I show you guys?
Sure.
This should be the same document that you have in your packet already. Is it different? Oh, this is for the school. Okay.
And that background was done last week.
Any questions of Mr. Amin right now? No? We may have some later. We'll see if anyone else would like to
Thank you.
testify. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address the Planning Commission on this appeal?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sheriff DiBasilio. Being in law enforcement, when you're speeding and I pull you over, I have the ability to either write you a ticket or not. It's called the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. In this instance, the understanding that I got at 11 o'clock at night with the Board of Supervisors that we were going to be going by the letter of the law. The ordinance is very specific. Although the Sheriff's Department, Mr. Amin is correct that the Sheriff's Department doesn't have the ability to deny an application because of the way the ordinance is written at this time. However, he did complete our background application, and he dated that July 27th, and it shows that he had no arrests. However, in doing the background check, we did find that he was in fact arrested for drunken public and assault on a peace officer. So our recommendation, again, and it is just that, it is a recommendation to the Planning Commission or to the Planning Department that his application be denied because of inaccurate information. Staying with what, oh, I'm sorry, it was battery, my mistake. The fact that he did not complete the he did not disclose all the information is part of that letter of the law. What the Board of Supervisors stated on that day was that there was going to be no exceptions. It's either done correctly or it's not done correctly. This application for the Sheriff's Office was not done correctly. That's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions?
Is there a statement on there that they signed stating that everything on here information is correct and no perjury? And
There is. On our application, you're signing under perjury that all the information is true and correct.
thank you.
Any other questions of the Sheriff Basilio? Thank you.
Good morning. Jim Macedo, Captain with the Sheriff's Office. The Calaveras County Sheriff's background question, it's the very first question. I believe you all have a copy of this in your packet. Question number 1, list any and all arrests or formal charges with or without disposition for any criminal offense within the U.S. or any other country, civilian or military. And the response was N/A. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good morning, Colleen Platt with MyValleySprings.com. I'm actually speaking just as an individual this morning, though, not on behalf of any organization. In reading that question, listing any arrests, formal charges, with or without disposition for any criminal offenses, just personally, I find that a confusing question, and it has a lot of qualifiers and terminology that I wouldn't understand with or without disposition, especially since the applicant and the evidence are actually in the staff report. It says the case was dismissed without criminal charges. So if it was dismissed without criminal charges, then the question kind of goes on for any criminal offenses. I could see how there might be some confusion in answering the question. So I'm just saying that in this process, there might be some room for interpretation and some room for mistakes. It sounds like the applicant may have made a mistake here. The sheriff has no flexibility in saying yes or no, because that's on their form, that if the answer is incorrect, then they have to reject it. But the Planning Department and the Planning Commission does have flexibility. If you read the section 17.95.170, the term is the application may be invalidated if the registration was in error, if there was a question that was answered in error, or there was some misleading information. So there's some flexibility in there. It does not say shall, it does say may. So I'm not saying what your decision should be, but I think there is some room for some consideration here of the possible mistake by an applicant. Thank you. That's my comment.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Mead, did you have any other? Sure.
I just wanted to clarify that there was no battery on a police officer. I was with my now wife at the time. She was my girlfriend, and I got into an altercation with someone else. We were arrested. When I went to court, they did dismiss it, but there was never no attack on a police officer or nothing. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing, back to the Planning Commission for discussion.
Well, the question to me does not call for convictions. It's just arrests or formal charges with or without disposition for any criminal offenses. I don't see a lot of ambiguity there. In fact, I don't see any. If you go to question 2, it does ask about convictions, whether you've been on probation, parole, or supervision for a conviction. That's where the convictions are covered. And it is correct that 17.95.170 says the registration may be invalidated by the planning director for any of the following reasons. If the application for registration contained a false or misleading information, which it did, and the planning director chose to do that. And I'm not prepared to say that he abused his discretion in so doing. There may be a little possible glitch the way this thing is written, though, because 17.95.170 says the registration may be invalidated. If you look at the preceding section, it says the registration may be denied or invalidated, and this one doesn't say that, for whatever reason. This registration never issued, because the mistake was caught before it issued. Having said that, it would seem silly to require the planning director to issue the registration and invalidate it. So I think it makes sense to let the denial stand.
Can't cover it all again, Kelly. I mean, it seems very clear on the arrest. I'm going to pass it on to you, Lisa.
Okay, so I'm reading number 1, just for clarity purposes regarding public comment. List any and all arrests or formal charges. Doesn't say anything, it just says list them all. An arrest is an arrest. A charge comes later as far as going to court and conviction. It didn't ask about that, it asked if it was an arrest. So I'm going to stand with that question was answered improperly. Also, when it comes to the same thing, Peter had the right to look at it and decide whether or not the answer was answered correctly and can deny the application based on that. I stand behind that. As far as the Planning Commission has the right to look at it and make a discretionary decision on it, I've said before, as far as intent goes, I'm not going to make any intent on this regulation because I didn't work on it. I didn't vote for it. As a planning commissioner, I will vote black and white, and that's what's in front of me. Thank you.
I tend to agree with that, except that I have just a little bit, but not a lot, but a little bit of sympathy toward the appellant in this case because of the fact that he seems to have been of the opinion that with the charges being dropped, that he thought maybe the arrest didn't count. That's not the way the law works, unfortunately. And so the ordinance very clearly says any arrest, and there definitely was an arrest. Whether it was valid or not is not in the ordinance. So I can't stand with the appellant.
And I'm sympathetic, just because the complete application, but that I believe the question is clear. Even if you just leave it at list any and all arrests or formal charges, whether you understand with or without disposition. I mean, that's kind of a qualifier, but it does say list them all. And the fact is that you answered the question by putting not applicable. I guess in hindsight, had you had some question about whether that particular incident in your past qualified as listing, it would have been prudent to ask the question, should I list this? This was 10 years ago, this happened to me. In hindsight, you're probably saying, all right, I wish I would have done that, and I wish you would have done that, and then we wouldn't, certainly wouldn't be here today. But I agree with my commissioners that we need to follow the ordinance as it was written, and so I am also not in favor of granting the appeal. Any other discussion? Are we ready for the recommendation? Okay.
Yes.
Gina?
Staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2016-018 denying 2016-1040 appeal, thereby upholding the Planning Director's determination to reject the application.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. So again, this action is appealable within 15 calendar
15
days
calendar
to
days.
the Board of Supervisors. Thank you. We're going to take a short recess until about, we're reconvening our meeting. There's been a request that we speak up and use our microphones. So this is a reminder, all the planning commissioners, to be right on top of that microphone. So next up is our continued review and recommendation to the Board of Supervisors on the general plan update. And we are continuing our discussion this morning on the land use map. So I'm not sure how we want to proceed. I would propose that we just start with the first hole in our matrix that has yet to be addressed. Does that make sense? Yep. So according to my matrix, that would be, I think we're still, well, the historic Avery Schoolhouse, is that still being worked on? There was some discussion, they were going to meet with you, Peter, and...
I haven't had a chance to meet with them. I did do some research on that. I think they can do what they want with the existing zoning and general plan land use designation.
So you're going to continue, you're going to meet with them?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So next up would be John Ellis in Arnold.
So this is a property that has an approved project on it that's still valid, and I think there's only one correction that we need to make. Mr. Ellis is passing out a map that shows the community plan. In fact, I can bring that up on the screen as well.
So which parcel are we looking at?
Well, it's actually this piece. It comes around here, includes that, and this. And
Okay.
all of that, I believe.
So part of like the mixed use, and then the
Right.
tan is a tan 5 acre?
This is the low-density residential.
Okay.
This is rural residential. This is mixed use. There was a piece here that was a part of the project that was recreation, and Mr. Ellis wanted to make sure that that was included. The community plan.
And the blue is a lake?
I think it's a lake.
Okay. And so there's a little lake in the middle,
Yeah.
and then there's a big lake on the other side of Highway 4?
No, there's only one lake. That's public service property over there.
There, this Arnold community plan. So it shows
Okay.
this rec area here. So, so we had, as part of the overall project, there was some multifamily here, some mixed use, commercial. Well, the community center designation would allow all of those uses. So it just seemed easier to do it that way. But this recreational use here was missed, and so that should be included. So I think that the action here would be to revise the map to include that area as, now this was like Parks and Recreation.
Right. It's not for commercial. It says buffer zone. It's where the drainage comes down through there, and that was part of the mitigating conditions on approval of the map.
So, Peter, you're recommending it would be RLD/CC/rec?
PR, Parks and
PR,
Recreation.
yes.
Okay, PR, just to make sure, okay. I presume you're Mr. Ellis?
I'm John Ellis, yes.
Thank you.
Well, I agree, you know, I'm requesting the PR be designated in that, it's actually lot number 98 on the tentative map.
I'm very familiar with this project. It is a beautiful project in our district, and I would support that request.
I mean, if anything, change it at Parks and Rec only constricts his use of putting any commercial on there later, so, I mean, I don't see any problem with him wanting to turn a drainage into Parks and Rec.
Thanks, Mr. Ellis. We'll see if anyone else wants to address the planning commission. Is there anyone else with us that would like to weigh in on this land use request? No one? Okay, so further discussion with the planning commission?
I'm good with it.
Yep.
Sounds good to me.
All right, so it sounds like we're all in agreement, tentatively saying, yes, it makes, that land use request makes sense.
Thank you.
You're very
Thank you
welcome.
for coming.
Okay.
So the next request on the list was Maria Callaway's request to modify the land use designation from residential medium density to residential low density. This is a lot in Forest Meadows. And looking at what's around it, just her parcel right here. We've got single-family residential all around and a couple of multifamily lots. Given the constraints in Forest Meadows, this seems like a reasonable request and would be consistent with the surrounding land use pattern.
I agree.
Is there,
Makes sense.
is there anyone in the audience that would like to address this land use request? No? All right.
I would agree.
I don't necessarily want to address this, but you know, as we're watching all of these slides, I don't see a large legend that tells me what the colors are, that I can really read. I was wondering if there's something we might do with that.
Well, yeah, there is a legend, but I'd have to.
Right.
It's
I know.
it's challenging to use, you know, on the
I didn't
screen
know if
here.
we could do a split screen or what.
But that's why I've
Just be
been pointing
nice.
out that, you know, this is
Single family.
I know
resource
you
production,
tell us, but then we
Parks
go
and
to the next
Recreation.
one, I tend to
Yeah.
Right.
forget. That's all.
It would be
Okay.
nice, yes.
Yeah.
Just throw it out there.
Right. Any other discussion? Is there a consensus about this request?
I'm good.
Me too.
Okay, so for Marita Callaway, there's tentative approval of RLD for the lot in Forest Meadows. Okay. We have John and Sandra Claiborne, Sheep Ranch.
I don't think they're here, and I don't know if we want to skip this one and maybe come back to it in the event that they're able to make it.
That's fine.
So we'll,
I'm good.
or
Chris Lang and Calvaritas. Is Mr. Lang here? No? Well, I guess it was requested by Ralph Walsh.
and the correspondence I got from Mr. Walsh, and it could just be that the property changed hands and our records still show that, because there's about a year delay by the time it
Right.
goes through the process. Sorry.
So I just have a quick question. We're skipping over,
Oh, did we miss somebody?
did we do Pamela Quill? Films? Did we do that one?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Why don't I remember that? I didn't mark it.
So this request is for this piece of property here. It's currently zoned unclassified. It's recommended for resource production. We've got industrial, probably old mining activity on this property to the west, federal land to the north, and the resource production around it. He's requesting 10-acre rural transition A for that, and that just seems really inappropriate given its location, its access off of Ponderosa Road in Frico City. And so I'm recommending that we stick with the resource production on this.
And probably, are there any services, sewer, water?
No.
Okay.
Although 10-acre parcels do not require public water or sewer.
Right, right. Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to address this land use request? No? All right, discussion with the Planning Commission?
What's the topography like there? Fairly steep, isn't it?
Well, you've got Calvary's Creek that goes through the middle of it. It's,
Yeah. Thank you.
Discussion.
I'm in agreement with the planning director's designation.
I agree. I think, Peter, your designation's correct.
Yeah, I do too. So that would be our tentative approval of the Planning Commission, Planning Director's recommendation for that parcel. So we're moving on to Donna Copeland and Toyon.
This is the property, Mr. Copeland was here a few weeks ago, and it was the site of the general plan amendment zone change application for the dispensary request that was ultimately denied by the Board of Supervisors. It's right at the corner of Toyon Circle and Highway 12, where Highway 26 comes in. There's existing building located right here. The rest of it's vacant. And it's all industrial around it. They're asking for commercial designation for this. The reason we kept the industrial designation was based on the board's action just a couple months ago to deny the request to change it. It didn't make sense for me as staff to change something the board has already made a decision on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the Planning Commission weighed in on
And you
that as
weighed in
well.
on that as
Yeah.
well, yeah.
Is there, is Ms. Copeland or here? Is there anyone else that wants to talk about this land use request?
Marty Crane, just as long as we're talking about this particular parcel, looking at the little bit bigger picture, the parcels, I know that going from Valley Springs to San Andreas, you come up to the intersection there and it's a blind curve as you go around. And that was discussed in length a few weeks ago when we talked about this, as being very dangerous to come in and out, that ingress and egress there. And it's always occurred to me, and I thought I would bring it up here, that maybe we could look at the possibility of, regardless of what we use that other property for, is there an opportunity to have an easement, to block off that ingress and egress, and use an easement so that all those properties just come right through to where the buses go in and out, because you can clearly see right and left there, and it would be safer, and it would certainly be a lot easier than a roundabout, a stoplight, and all the other things that were kind of thrown out there in the discussion last time. I think we could resolve it with just an easement so that all those properties everybody could go in and out of the same place. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks.
We've actually talked about that. Public Works Department has weighed in, and what we'd like to see is actually these property owners get together and work with us to come up with a circulation plan for at least this, these southern parcels here. This was remnant of, an old lumber mill that was there, and for many, many years, long before the kind of traffic that we now have on Highway 12 or 26. And it, sort of a remnant of, old historic development. There's a grade difference in the creek, so this has its own circulation issue. But this area here, and particularly everything that comes off of Torreon Circle here, is a dangerous intersection, and it was part of the concern that Caltrans raised during the review of the project. So we're looking at that. We just can't, get an easement unless we want to use eminent domain to do so. We'd rather work with the property owners so that if future development occurs back in this area, we have a circulation plan, and perhaps these property owners here would be willing to grant an easement to assist with better circulation and potential development for that area. But that's not something we can sort of do. Well, we can do it unilaterally, but it's a process, so I'm sure we're really willing to undergo at this point in time of using eminent domain to create that easement. There's certain findings we need to make, and I think we probably could make it, but that's a question for the Board of Supervisors rather than staff, of whether they want to use their eminent domain powers to acquire an easement. We'd much rather work with the property owners in here and figure out a system that's going to work for everyone, and that's sort of the next step in that process.
Okay. All right, so discussion?
Just one other thing. How many feet is the district office for the school district away from that property? Just to add to it, I'm already leaning towards.
Well, we don't really have if you're concerned about the 1,000-foot separation for the dispensary, that was an issue that was discussed. They were actually proposing to subdivide this property so that the portion that would have the dispensary up here would meet the 1,000-foot separation.
Okay.
But that's really not before us
Right.
today. We're just looking at land use.
Gotcha.
Well, I'm in favor of keeping it industrial for the reasons that I stated when we reviewed it before. Industrial property is pretty valuable, and it is obviously in an industrial park, so I would be in favor of keeping the recommendation of the planning director and for that property to remain industrial.
I agree.
Agreed.
Okay.
Okay, so it looks like we've got consensus on tentative approval for staff recommendation for industrial.
Chair Fawn, we have a couple here that had been emailing back and forth with the planning department, but they're not on our list. Are they going to need to wait until the end, or can we squeeze them in that
I think
area?
a couple months, we'll probably get to them.
Couple months?
Yeah, shouldn't be a problem.
Couple
No.
months.
No, I
That's
think
what she said.
No, I'm fine. We can squeeze them in.
Okay.
So are they on our list? They're not on the list?
They're not on the list.
Okay, so, but Peter's aware of them.
He is now.
Well,
So-
I am now. I'm not sure how we missed it, but why don't we, if they're here, and maybe there's anyone else who's not on the list that wants to, see
Sure,
if we can,
we could do that. So
take
do
it
you
out.
have, can you show us the map, or?
if they can tell me an APN.
Oh, okay, so we don't know anything about them. So
Apparently
come on,
not.
come on up.
I'm a little bit hard of hearing, so I'm doing the best I can.
Okay, well,
My
we're going
name
to
is,
speak up into our microphones, too.
Okay. My name is Lawrence Burns and my wife Vivian. For the last 22 years, we've had property adjacent to Highway 4 and Anray Court and Feeney Park in Murphy's.
Sir, do you happen to know what your parcel number is?
I can find it, I know where that
Okay.
is.
I think I have it, but during that period of time, we improved the property considerably. And we were under the understanding, probably about 10, 12 years ago, that at some point in the future, it would be possible to split the lot, bringing it down from a 7-acre, 6.98 acres, to possibly 2 or 2.5-acre parcel. On that basis, about 11 or 12 years ago, we constructed a separate residence, accessory dwelling, with the idea at some point in the future we would be able to split the property. We were given assurances along the way, a couple of different supervisors and so on, that that would be forthcoming. So we're here to make that clear that we would like the opportunity at some point to split the lot, possibly down to a 2-acre situation. And that's our position
So
at this
which
point.
parcel is yours, sir? Do you?
It's
It's-
6A.
It's this one right here.
It's the one right on the corner of Highway 4 and Anray Court and Feeney Park.
Feeney
That
Park.
right there.
And the green is what?
This is the rural transition B, 5-acre minimum. We've got public facility here, the park, rural residential across the way, and then down below is 10-acre RTA, rural transition A. So, and it's all zoned RE5 in this area. There are some smaller parcels across the highway, but everything is 5 acres or greater in this little development here.
Mr. Burns, does the HOA or CCRs have any provision in there for 5-acre minimum parcels?
I'm sorry. Baby. Come here. Would you repeat that, please?
Yes.
Go ahead. Listen to me.
Does the HOA or CCRs have any restrictions in there for 5-acre parcels?
I think there is a restriction, isn't there?
There is a restriction, yeah. As far as splitting the property?
As far as how low it can be split, do they have to maintain 5-acre parcels?
You have to maintain 5 or more.
Right.
Okay, so if you split this off, then would that create conflict?
With the neighbors?
No, with your HOA and CCRs?
See, I don't know that.
Conflict
with the CCRs. Would there be?
No, as far as I know, there would be no conflict.
Okay.
This is the Murphy-Douglas Flat Community Plan. It's also as a RR5 designation.
Tell them about this. We, at the time we were interested in dividing the property, we got permission from all of the neighbors except one.
Right.
They were all interested in being able to split their properties at some time. But there was just one who wasn't interested in that possibility. Other than that, everyone else in that whole neighborhood was for doing it at some point in time.
So the issue that we get faced with when we're looking at the land use maps and we look at a bigger picture like this, the consistency is that that street and that area is 5-acre lots. That's where the problem's coming in when we're looking at,
Right.
if we take and we give you a different land use than everybody else in that area, it throws off the land use in that area a little bit. Does that make sense what we're looking at?
Yeah, except then everybody would have that option to do the same thing if they wish to.
Peter, can you go out on that map a little bit, please?
So the back side of them are 2-acre parcels?
So everything on Ann Ray are 5 or greater. A couple of them back up to Penn Gulch Road. This is a Green Meadow subdivision down here that is
5 acres.
5 and 6-acre parcels for the most part. And everything around this is, again, the community plan, the Murphy-Douglas Flat community plan. All of this area was designated for 5-acre parcels. And that's consistent with what we proposed.
What is RRX?
Means no further
RRX
subdivisions.
is rural residential that the land can't be split further under that zoning.
Okay.
So regardless of the parcel size, that's the minimum parcel size.
And a lot of time that's done when with the development, you've compensated for something.
So if there was a density transfer,
Right.
you had some larger parcels and you could have some smaller ones, but the overall density was the same.
So the only other possible zoning that could be considered for that area, because right now it's RTB, so it'd be 5 to 10 acre parcels. And in any zoning that would allow them to go lower to a 1 to 5 acre, they would have to be rural residential in
Right.
that neighborhood.
Which are 1 acre.
And then that splits off a whole bunch of acreage in there, if they went to 1 acres. You see it? Wow.
We'll see if anyone else wants to address the planning commission on your request. But we may have further questions for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Don't go away. No, don't go away like leave.
Just,
You can go away and sit down. Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to address the planning commission on this land use request?
Just for information purposes, it is in the Murphy Sanitary District as well as the UPUD. I don't know if there is actual service in there, but it is within the districts. So
oh, that's interesting.
do you have public water or sewer?
We have water, but not sewer.
Okay.
They have sewer capabilities in there?
Well, it's within the district. I don't know what kind of lines are available, whether it's possible to provide sewer, but in some cases, the districts cover a fairly large area, but the actual service
The
boundary
infrastructure is not there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
It's split up there too, because there's septic to go in other places also.
How large is this parcel?
6+
6.98.
I guess I would want to know the reason why they would want to split that further.
They have 2 houses built on it already.
Can we ask you some more questions, please? You have 2 houses on this property already?
Yes,
Would the purpose for subdividing it be to split those 2 homes apart on the land?
that's correct.
So you wouldn't have an intent to split it further than that?
No. We built the accessory dwelling for my daughter and son-in-law, and with the idea that we would split it eventually, and we haven't been able to do that. So what we want to do is be able to do that so that that home would be on a separate property and ours would be on separate property.
If we were looking at a map, Peter, could we see the locations of where those 2 homes are located? So how bad would the split be?
I think that maybe getting into that kind of design might be
Pushing
going a
it.
little far afield right now.
I
but,
agree.
we can certainly look at it just to see what's out there.
Only, I guess because it was directly across the street, I see small parcels.
Are they both on that back line pretty much, right next to each other?
It looks like there's a structure here.
Right there is where our home is, and then off to the right is my daughter's home, right there.
Up here?
Yes.
Okay.
It's weird for access.
It says that the ones across the street are RR5, but the one's .97.
Could have been a pre-existing,
Pre-existing.
yes, parcel.
Yeah, and that, I'm not sure that's accurate because there are other smaller parcels. It's probably more like well, okay, yeah,
They're
that's,
2
yeah, about an
acres.
acre, that's right. Yeah. So we've got some 2 acre, 2.5 acre parcels, here.
Any other questions of Mrs. Burns right now? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sympathetic with the request, but the options, as far as setting a kind of a precedent for this area is significant.
It is.
I mean, it certainly wouldn't preclude them from requesting it at some point in the future, in which point all of the neighbors would officially get to weigh in with a zoning amendment. But I know that's timely and expensive. I understand that, but it also creates an opportunity for other investors through their own personal investment in their homes, have an opportunity to have a decision on and reflect on the future of their neighborhoods.
I hate to say it, but I think just looking at this, I think we better keep it the way it is.
I'm in agreement. If you look around the RRX, I mean, at some point, the community did not want to split further than they already are. So I think it's a good idea to have the community weigh in on such an option.
Yeah, the footprint's there. I mean, I would love to be able to help you, but we can see where in the past, there were RRXs, which means in that area, they wanted it to stop at that level. And being that all the neighbors aren't here to say, hey, we'd like this area to be that, it makes it difficult for us looking at this map. That's a tough one, and it's in the existing zone is the 5 acre parcel split. So it's the same, staying the same. It's not like we've done something to cause any more harm. Because of the existing footprint, it's very difficult to make a land use decision to switch that. I'm sorry.
Ted, have you got?
I think maybe this is a place for some discussion regarding when you put a second dwelling, that isn't necessarily any kind of an opening an avenue for a split. In fact, it's quite the contrary. Isn't that true?
I'm not sure I'm following you, but it could be. You're saying that that would be if you built an accessory dwelling with the expectation, automatic expectation that you might get a lot split? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's not the way it
That's not the way it works, no.
It's considered accessory dwelling.
That's right,
Yeah.
right. Well, it seems like we have some consensus, and we are sympathetic to your, to your situation, but I think it would be imprudent for the commission to say that this would be a good opportunity, this would be a good place to do a split, considering the neighborhood and the fact that there are, it is zone 5 acre minimums, and even though I guess the option would be is that you gather all your neighbors and go to the supervisors when it hits, when this plan is presented towards them. That might be an option for you, but I think there's consensus that we think, as far as like the big picture and land use for the county, that it's appropriate to leave this land use designation as it is. Thank you. Okay, so it looks like we are moving over to, is it Andrew Capestro? Isn't
Yeah,
this the same
was-
one we just did?
This one we did, well, we looked at it a couple weeks ago, and
Oh, this is.
you had asked me to try to contact Mr. Capestro. I have been unable to do so, not, I've been unable to even attempt to do
right,
so at
because
this
the
point in time.
requester was My Valley Springs.
Yeah,
Okay.
so let's carry that one over, and I
Okay.
put that to the top of my priority list.
Okay.
It's been a hectic last few weeks, so.
So we're gonna skip that.
So we're going
right
to skip that one.
now. All right.
So we're moving on to Melinda Hoff, it looks like, on page 7?
We already did
No,
that one.
sorry.
I have Mr. Peters on page 5.
5, yeah.
Oh, well, let me ask, is there anyone else here that's not on our matrix today?
Okay,
So would you like to come up?
there's 2.
Okay.
Kathy Morrissey, did you receive the letter that I submitted? No. Okay. I did submit a letter, but I also brought copies of it as well. So I'll perhaps just read the letter aloud, and we can discuss it. Dear Mr. Maurer.
Maybe we could just look at the parcel, Peter,
Yeah.
maybe give him a chance. so
Yes,
we can-
it's in here.
Sure, give us a moment to
Absolutely.
cue that up.
I think are these your notes?
Oh,
Oh. Is that you or me? That must be me.
I think that was mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Got it in my arm.
This piece here.
And what's the green, just remind me, the darker green?
those are,
It's working lands.
those are
Like the
3.
20 acre minimums.
Yeah, those are 3 20-acre parcels. 2 of those were actually lot line adjustments. They were originally part of our ranch, and 15 years or so ago, we sold those 2 20s as part of a lot line adjustment.
Okay,
And this is the historic center.
Copperopolis, right? Okay, go ahead.
So we are formally submitting a request on behalf of the Morrissey Ranch, asking you and the Planning Commission to consider changing the land use designation on parcel number 53-014-018. This piece of our ranch is currently zoned A1. We are asking you to consider changing this parcel to community center rather than resource production in the general plan update. The Morrissey Ranch as a whole encompasses approximately 5,000 acres. The parcel we're requesting to have zoned CC is 357 acres. When the ranch was purchased in the late 1970s, it was with the intention of developing this front parcel. The bulk of the ranch will remain a working cattle ranch. The piece in question was removed from the Williamson Act over 20 years ago. Representatives from our family were part of the original Copperopolis Community Planning Group, and for years consistently attended meetings to discuss the future vision for Copperopolis. The designation mixed-use community center fit our vision, as this piece has a large western edge which fronts O'Byrne Ferry Road. To the north is the Old Town Center, and the south has commercial development. Working with the planning commissioner at the time, we went through the process of doing the requisite studies and had a map drawn up with parcels ranging in size from 5 to 37 acres. As we were about to submit the map, it was discovered the general plan was out of compliance. While the plans to submit our application were put on hold, we continued to attend meetings regarding the community plan for Copperopolis. During this time, the New Melones revised plan of operation was in the works. At the suggestion of then Supervisor Russ Thomas and Greg Mayer, we began attending meetings to research the potential of putting a day-use access road through our ranch. For years, there had been discussion regarding accessing New Melones from the west in an effort to ease the burden of heavy traffic on Tulloch, as well as increase use of the reservoir. This began a long process of attending both public and private meetings at the Bureau of Reclamation Western Headquarters in Folsom. In order to determine a route, we had multiple aerial surveys performed, engineering studies of the land, and ultimately a road mapped out. This was all coordinated with then Supervisor Russ Thomas, the Planning Department, and representatives from BLM. As you will hopefully recognize, our request to change the current zoning of A1 to Community Center would allow us to continue to proceed with our plans.
Mrs. Morrissey, so what we're working on is land use designations, not zonings.
Right.
And so when I'm looking at this list for A1 and I look at the crossover list on land use, I don't know that we can do zone.
I think that was just maybe a misstatement, that the land use designation is RP, and they're looking to change from RP.
Yeah, I'm not a planner, so
No, okay.
I may have used incorrect terminology.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions of Ms. Morrissey right now?
The designation now is RP.
I believe
Yes.
that's
Yes.
what Mr. Mauer is
Proposed
proposed.
designation, the existing general plan is natural resources, agricultural.
And what about the water situation?
Well, when we were doing the subdivision map, for lack of a better term, we had perk studies done on multiple proposed parcels, and they were excellent.
So community center is quite a bit smaller than an acre, so you.
6 dwelling units per acre.
6 dwelling units per acre.
Actually,
So-
20.
Up to 20.
Up to 20. And what's our minimum size acreage for a septic?
With well and septic, it's 5 acres,
5 acres.
assuming it perks properly.
And in the parcel map that we did develop at the time, the minimum parcel size that we had was 5 acres.
Is there a reason you're trying to go to a smaller parcel size specifically?
Well, one of the options that we were looking at and actually did quite a bit of research with was putting in a multi-level retirement style community, which would allow for certain areas to have a higher density. Right. We actually had discussions with St. Joseph's Medical Center to potentially partner with doing something of that nature.
Which would require some public services for a density like that.
Yes.
Right.
Any other questions of Ms. Morrissey right now?
Yeah, is this the same parcel that we discussed before when you talked about doing a medical center?
Yes, and it's not a medical center. It was our vision, because there is a high need, was more of a retirement style community that would offer what the term is several different levels of care. So you have, say for example, condominium style dwellings, and then an assisted care facility that is in conjunction with that.
And as far as infrastructure and facilities, sewer, water access, because obviously you would have to have that type of an infrastructure, how far away is that, and is it in any of the districts?
I don't believe it's within the districts yet, or today. It's,
Just a reminder about a Burns Ferry Road, which is a level D road, which.
so the crosshatch
Development is
is
40
the
acre
area
minimum.
that's in CCWD, down here
Right.
and here.
There's the
and there's-
Cosmopolis downtown square.
Here.
So is
I mean, if somebody was going to do a project that big, I'm not worried about a level service D because they could fix the roads and do better infrastructure on that. But it's pretty far, it just seems like it's...
So again, when you look at those 20-acre parcels and then Old Town, the piece that we're talking about is trapezoidal shaped, the largest leg being the frontage on O'Byrne's Ferry Road. And if you were to look at a topo map, you will see that the pieces along O'Byrne's Ferry Road are very flat and actually have great visual coverage from O'Byrne's Ferry Road. One of the things that we also looked at was we had great interest from the Catholic Church, the Diocese of Stockton. As I mentioned previously, they do not currently have a private Catholic school in this area, and they were very, very interested. We had, in our parcel map that we had put together, we had several 5-acre parcels along the front of O'Byrne's Ferry Road, and looking at potentially putting in something that would be a positive item to look at as you approach that area. So it wasn't just the assisted care. We looked at lots of different things. We also were contacted at one point multiple times by PG&E. Apparently, I don't know if this has happened since we did this, but there is no substation in the area, and they were looking at land to potentially put in a substation. We spent considerable time and money doing this. So,
Any other questions with Ms. Marcy right now? All right, we may have some more later.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else with us today that would like to discuss this land use request? No?
I guess I should say something today. Good morning, Colleen Platt, My Valley Springs and the Calaveras Planning Coalition. I just am a little bit, can I just clarify that there is that correct? There's no public sewer or water service to that frontage of
It's currently not within the district boundaries. Hold on a second. The crosshatch are the district boundaries, district boundaries.
And those 3 smaller, the working land parcels are not part of this
They're not.
request? They're owned by somebody else, is that correct?
Yes.
Because those are adjacent, sort of adjacent, but this parcel
Well,
is a long distance away from
The
it.
gap between, the closest point is here, it looks like.
Mhm. And the topography of that parcel, the applicant said it was flat in one area, but I'm curious about the rest of it.
Well, it is flat along the road and for quite a distance off the road.
Okay, but
Then
they're
it gets-
asking
then
for
it
the...
gets steep.
But they're asking for the designation for the whole entire parcel.
As I understand it.
Right. I don't know if there's any way to split designations on a parcel.
I think we have before, haven't we?
So, Fawn.
Okay,
help me out
thank you.
here. I don't know where my brain's at. We reviewed this property before.
No, she just made a short
Presentation.
saying she was coming
Last
back.
week, it was
Because
brought
I'm
up.
sitting here thinking, did I miss something?
Yeah, no, she was here at the last
I
meeting.
remember her talking, and I
Right.
remembered the discussion, but
Right.
I thought,
Right.
okay,
Right,
I didn't have any notes, and I was...
right, well, that's why. It was
Okay.
just at the very end of the meeting. Well, I have a lot of concerns. Again, I think it's, we're not talking about potential projects, however worthwhile those may be. It really has to do with land use designations and does it make sense? And for me, the limitations of the road, there's no sewer, there's no water, there's really, again, we have 3 times the demand. I mean, the 3 times the supply is the projected demand for housing. I am not in favor of supporting the request for those reasons.
If I could pipe in for a minute, if you're inclined to provide some other designation, we might consider the future specific plan as we had with some of the other ones where we didn't really want to designate the whole area and wanted to do some limitations. The concern I have here is it's just sort of a lot of speculation as to what could be there. Maybe it's a school, maybe it's a retirement center, maybe it's a 5-acre subdivision. It seems a bit premature at this point. If they do get plans and they decide this is what we really want to do with this property, they can always come in for an application. They need to go through a zone change and either a tentative map or some other type of application process anyway. And even under the old general plan, their tentative map would have required a general plan amendment. So it just seems that if we had an actual project that we could identify, okay, we're going to have this number of lots and this amount of area for commercial development or a school, we could identify that as part of some future specific plan. But we don't even really have that at this point in time. So I'm a little hesitant to suggest that that's what we do. I don't think that the owners actually know what they want to do. They've got a lot of ideas and they may have a lot of merit to them, but maybe at the time that they actually have a project, they can come forward at that time and would consider it rather than try to predispose it at this point in time because we really don't know what it's going to be.
Well, I was looking at the table, and the agricultural falls under resource management, production, or working lands. There really isn't a provision for that zone to be in the land use designation of community center.
Well, any of the rural residential agricultural zones can be sort of a holding zone for something of future higher intensity. So under one of the policies that we adopted or that you recommended was that that consistency that inconsistency between current zoning and future land use doesn't make it out of compliance. It's just that right now we're going to keep it zoned agricultural until a project and infrastructure is ready to move forward. But there's an area that we've identified as appropriate for some level of future development at such time that it's ripe. And so the A1 zoning would just remain that until such time as the property owner came forward with the project to say
So
this is what
she
we
can
want to
bring
do.
this project forward at any time and do an amendment with her zoning and the land use?
Yes.
Okay. She's going to have to do that on the zone anyway, right?
Right.
Okay.
And this ground did come out of the Williamson Act 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've always had in mind doing some development of some kind on this part of the ranch, otherwise why pull it out of the Williamson Act? Makes no sense. And the rest of the ranch is a working ranch, has been forever. There is frontage on O'Byrne's Ferry Road, they have access. There is water, CCWD supplies water to Old Copperopolis, which is 3 parcels away.
Mm-hmm.
But we're sort of hampered by the lack of a specific project to consider, and so I'm in favor of the planning director's suggestion of future specific plan here, somewhat like we did with one of the Sanguinetti pieces, and this one is a little more amorphous even as to what might be going to happen.
Well, and that's part of the challenge with that is that we would need to have some indication of what the maximum intensity of development would be. Is it 5 acres of commercial? Is it 20 acres of commercial? Is it going to be a school? How many residential lots are proposed? Because that's what, we got a maximum number of units designated on the Sawmill Lake project, and the proposers for the Sanguinetti Ranch property were supposed to get back to me with some indication of so that we can do an environmental analysis. It's not going to be, a couple hundred acres of high density, multifamily residential at 20 units an acre. We don't want to have to analyze the potential impacts of something that's not going to occur. We'd like to have some limitation identified with that future specific plan. So if there's something that they have, this is what we want to do, we just need to sort of fine tune it somewhat, that would be appropriate. I'm just concerned, what I heard today was that, well, we might do this, we might do that, we really don't know, and that's why I think it may be a little premature.
So it comes to my question, do you have something more specific?
We have a subdivision map, and for lack of better terms, I don't know what the actual term would be. We have a map for the 357 acres that has parcels that range in size from 5 to 37. On each, not on each, but we did, at the time, we were working with the planning commissioner, Bob, don't remember his last name. Just to give you some history, this has been going on for a long time. This, as Kelly said, this is nothing new to the people who live in Copperopolis. We have been working on this. And I'm sorry if I confused things by throwing out a lot of different ideas that we had. We do have a map. And as I said, the parcels range in size from 5 to 37. And when I talk about different ideas, it's because we were looking at lots of different options, and we did have different entities specifically interested in the potential of purchasing a 5-acre lot to put a church and a school on. As Kelly said, water is not that far away. Dan, who was here earlier, will also reinforce that. And when we were working with the Copperopolis Community Plan, we were looking at a master plan community term or mixed use. So.
May I continue? Because you've definitely clarified my question. You came in today with the intent of making sure that Peter had your letter. We aren't going to be done with the land use applications today, right?
Probably not.
Probably not. So you seem fairly short on your information that you would like to submit. Shall we put this off until possibly the next meeting?
And you're suggesting that she would submit this information for the next meeting?
For the next meeting.
Which you mean like
whatever,
an example of the map?
Well, or maybe not an example, but maybe
the map itself. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Something
Right.
that demonstrates what
you're talking about
yeah.
right now.
Okay.
Because you came in with the intent to hand the letter. You did that. And
I'd be fine with that.
suggestion, because it's better to have all the information before us when people receive.
No? I mean, I'm in favor. I think that makes sense.
Let's kill it.
Ted thinks it makes sense.
I mean, I'm fine with that. I would hope we would finish the land use designations today. I don't see that many more to go.
Well, if not, we could still consider Ms. Morrissey's.
This is important enough that I think the commissioners think they need more information. I think that's appropriate.
Okay, I think that's what we're going to be doing.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And then there was someone else.
Yeah, I'm just here for a public comment.
Oh, okay. You're going to be here a while.
I know, I might have to go and come back.
What, you might consider doing that.
Okay. But this is very interesting, actually.
Okay.
So I'm glad I'm here.
All right, so we are moving on to.
There's one gentleman.
Oh, sure, come on in.
He's back.
I'm not sure if I was added to your matrix or not. Hopefully you guys got some correspondence via email last night. I want to apologize for
Could you
how
please
late
state
this
your name
came.
for the record?
Sure, Jeff Roten.
Thank you.
I was before you last week with regards to land use designation of my property, and you wanted me to state the parcel number?
No, I think we'll find it.
Okay.
Peter's got it right there. I'm pretty sure.
All right. At that time, there were several questions about connections to CCWD and the There were some attachments that were sent to you last night from Robert Kramer regarding the property. Hopefully everyone had a chance to see that. That gave a history of the property and a brief summary, and I'll read what he had stated. Mr. Roten, per the 2 documents attached, the district had preliminarily approved service to this parcel in 2005 for 253 single-family dwellings, a recreation area, and an RV storage area. That approval apparently lapsed in 2007. To my knowledge, the water and sewer summaries in the engineering committee agenda item dated February 24th, 2005 are still valid today, given the lack of development in our area in the last 10 years. However, this property has no continuing or current agreements with CCWD. A completely new project with an accompanying engineering report would be required to assess the current status of water, wastewater demands for whatever project you decide to propose. I hope this information is helpful. When we look at the data that was sent over, one of the summary items from the CCWD Engineering Committee discussed the proposals. There was a question whether the property was within CCWD's district, and they defined it a little differently, so I don't know if it's a matter of semantics. I'm not real certain on this, but the summary stated, the proposed Sanguinetti Estates development consists of 253 single-family units and recreation area and RV storage area. The development is within the Copper Cove water and wastewater master planning area boundaries. And I honestly don't know the difference, but they certainly had anticipated connection to CCWD. They talk about the water capacity and the wastewater capacity associated with the previous project. So I'm hoping with that additional information, you would reconsider the rural residential to the residential low density designation, which would be more similar to what it was when it was considered a residential center in the current general plan, what it is in the current general plan.
Any questions? And Peter, your response, you had a...
Well, I just forwarded the information on, and I think that what Mr. Roten's getting at is that, well, it's not actually in the district today. This previous project, CCWD indicated they could serve it. It would require annexation to the district and extensions of lines. There are lines that, serve the project all along. There's water lines in here, and there's lines that serve all the, the parcels adjacent to it. So as far as physical infrastructure, it appears that they could serve it. And there hasn't been a significant amount of change since 2007 that would say, oh, now we're now at capacity and we can't serve it as we previously indicated. But in their planning area, I'm not sure that's, I guess, sort of a term of art that CCWD uses as far as looking at, future potential demand on the system. But that's not, my statement was it's not within the district. It's not within the district today. Right. It probably can be annexed and probably can be served.
Mm-hmm.
Can I address that? I just wanted to reiterate where one of the statements made that the development is within the Copper Cove water and wastewater master planning area boundaries. I don't know the difference or the distinction.
Well, I think it's two different entities. One's a Copper Cove something and the other one's CCWD.
CCWD has a number of different areas, and they have, the Copper Cove area is one that they have looked at from a long-term planning perspective.
So they're just saying if they could serve it at some point.
Well, my understanding, they're not saying it's within the district, but it's within their area boundaries of their master plan.
Yes.
Okay.
I think we got that.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there maybe we'll see if someone else wants to.
Okay.
Is there anyone else that wanted to discuss Mr. Roten's request for residential low density, so a higher density than the rural residential?
So I remember last week we modified, this was going to go to the RTA 10-acre minimum, and his property, you decided that it should be rural residential 1-acre minimum.
Can we go back over, what are the size of the lots over there to the left of the property?
Your basic residential subdivision lots, probably in the range of, a quarter to a third of an acre.
Okay.
I could zoom in and find out for sure, but it's probably not really. I mean, they're all served by public water and sewer.
And I don't know, I'm comfortable with the decision that we made before. I had the understanding previously that it was, I mean, it's always, potentially it could be included in when the district expanded to serve that area, but currently it's not.
I kind of go both ways on that because according to the letter I read and knowing the potential for what CCWD has, they have the capacity with the wastewater and the water treatment to be able to take on that many. But at the same time, the infrastructure on the property is not there yet. So I kind of go both ways.
Well, it's not there yet because there's no houses there. But it seems to me that it's now quite clear that CCWD would be able to serve this. And you're looking at pretty dense development on the south of it and to the west of it. If you want to be concentrating development where infrastructure can be available, and you want to do as much infill as makes sense, I mean, I think I'm prepared to go with RLD on this one.
It would infill the rest that's already there.
I'm confused. To be honest with you, it seems like we got two things going on at the same time.
Well, there is proof provided from Lemke prior to having an approved development there at that same size, correct?
It wasn't approved, it was in process, as
Okay. Thank you
I
for
believe.
clarifying.
But CCWD had indicated during that review process that they could serve it.
That was originally a Lemke product, a project?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, there's my cheat sheet.
And from a staff's perspective, I don't have a concern either way.
So the RC, Peter, in 96, because I have my cheat sheet here somewhere amongst this mess, was what size?
2 per acre max.
2 dwelling acres.
If it has
I mean,
water
2
and
dwelling units per
sewer
acre.
and roads, you could get up to
Up
2
to
units
2.
per acre.
Okay.
Yeah, but this, it would be up to 6.
Yes.
Yeah.
They want RLD. Yeah. So how many parcels would that be?
I think that it was like 350 lots. somewhere in that range that could be, if they maximize the total number of units. I believe that a revised project was submitted that had 117 that was consistent with the 96 general plan,
2 units per acre.
2 units per acre.
Well,
May
the
I-
problem is we don't have a classification between 1 acre and 6 dwelling units an acre. I mean, I think Mr. Wotan has said that he doesn't want to put 253 units on this. Thinks it's too many.
So we go back to what the decision was with the Sanguinetti Ranch last week. Is there any way we could do a designation with a limited number of lots
Well,
accordingly?
Yeah, I think that we could do that. It seemed a little small to actually do a specific plan. I mean, it's really basically just a tentative map type thing. It could be controlled by zoning, and so when we get to the zoning, I mean, someone could always propose to do a higher density project, and we would look at the merits of that project, you know, on its own. And if they could figure out a way to make it work for 3 or 4 or 5 units an acre, and it met all the criteria of the county, then that would be appropriate under the general plan. I think that my understanding was that there was quite a bit of outcry against that high-density project, and the neighbors raised a number of issues, and the applicant then decided that it would be better to scale it back. There was the limitation on the general plan that provided that, you know, under the old general plan of the 2 units an acre, provided that threshold. It said, okay, anything over this requires now a general plan amendment, and they chose not to go that route and kept it under that limit. So by changing it to RLD, it has the potential for being, you know, much higher, but it also could be, you know, a 2 unit per acre project would be consistent with that.
But if you don't go to RLD, you're limited to 59 units.
Right.
Under the general plan, if you go to RLD, as you say, it gives you flexibility, and you have control over the zoning process, and when some project comes along, you can deal with it then.
Right.
It's just that the general plan won't be in the way.
It's another one of those where there's not a proper place to put this.
Well, I got to remember that the general plan designation are range, and that the refinement of that is through the zoning. You know,
And this,
and sometimes individuals will think that if it's designated, you know, land use designation, that it automatically means you get the highest density use, and that's not necessarily the case. You have to look at the specifics of what's around it, what are the constraints, physical constraints on the site, all the various issues that we would look at during a rezone process.
As in with the neighbors and them submitting.
How it fits in with the community, all those issues would be looked at.
well, I will go ahead and go with the requester's request, only because they have the ability to get their infrastructure. It's going to be costly, but they have that ability. And the other reason is that I know that there'll be public hearings and there'll be a lot of decision-making made at that time. My responsibility right now is land use. That's all I'm going to worry about. And I know that the infrastructure's there, it's all around it, and so I'll go ahead and go with that.
That makes sense to me.
So it sounds like we have some consensus, but, you know, I have concern because, you know, the reality is, it's when it gets to that point to the zoning, you already have a general plan that says that they can have a maximum 350 lots. The neighbors are already protested that at one point, but now they're going to be kind of behind the 8 ball because he's going to be consistent with the general plan for that higher density, even though there could be other limitations. So I'm not in support of it, but we have consensus that is.
I would like to say that in the past that they did have a proposition for more lots to go in before, and the community was heard. and they did scale it back to the two lots per acre.
Right. So, but now he's going to be able to have 6 units per acre. So it's not going to be somebody asking for something that wasn't allowed by the general plan, is my point.
Back to, I wish we could put a number on it. I really do. Because I tend to agree with you partially, but our decision's made for now? Tentatively?
I think so. I think so. So
Partially and tentatively.
tentatively approval for Mr. Roten's request for RT, what is it? No, RLD. RLD. Okay. Anyone else here that's not on our list? No. Okay. So now we are moving on to,
Yeah, Nancy's here.
She's been here 3 weeks.
Is this proper time for the Angels Camp area?
sure.
I'm going to recuse myself on this one.
Why is that?
Well, because she's my first cousin, known her forever. We own property together around Sheep Ranch. It's been in the family for 100 years.
Okay. I just
We
think
run
it's important
cattle
to
next to
state
each other in the
why.
mountains.
Yeah.
Other than that,
No,
I'm Nancy Whittle. The first one I want to talk about is,
Isn't it, are you-
it's
are you
listed
on our list,
under...
Nancy? I'm just-
It's
okay.
listed under Hutchison. It's an undivided ownership. My husband and I own 50%. Bill Hutchinson owns a 16th of it, so there's 4 owners in that.
So is that 640133030?
That is
57,001, 46,
6
and
and
47.
47.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry, what was it again? 64
57001.
minus 64.
46 and 47. So we're talking about these 2 parcels here.
Wait, I still haven't found it. I'm
It's about the middle of page 7.
oh,
Yes.
middle of page 7.
The name.
Oh, okay, all right, I
and
found it.
the-
All right.
The name on our list is Hutchinson. I
Right,
realize that
correct.
there's multiple owners, and that's just
Yeah.
the name that came up first.
Okay, so it's the 2 by the Cherokee Creek area. Okay.
So just for, this is the city limits of Angels Camp. Right here is the sphere of influence of the city of Angels Camp.
I'm sorry, where was the city limits?
The white.
Oh, the white's the
line
city
there.
limits, and then
Yeah.
the sphere is
This
the
the sphere,
tan there.
Yeah.
And that is, what's the tan?
That's rural residential.
Okay. And then the green is working lands?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the zoning on that is RRX. I'm not sure the reason for that, but that would be the designation that, so this whole area here is an area that
No further
no
subdividing?
further subdividing is permitted under the current zoning.
Okay.
If I may address that, Peter, most likely the reason for that is the 40-acre or the RR5 to the west, I guess, of the R2 parcels. The 3 were split in a parcel map, probably in the late 70s, early 80s, and that was the zoning that they put on it at that time.
All right, so that was sort of compensating for creating those smaller parcels, probably.
It was, I don't know why. I don't know why we did it. We used to be in the Angels sphere of influence, but we're out of it now. If you'll look surrounding, there's 5-acre parcels. We had Gene Deaver at one point prepare a tentative map, and there were 10s and 5s basically on it, subdivision. And the only reason we didn't go through is because we did not want to pay 50% of the cost of developing the property. I know that the county is looking at a lot of undeveloped parcels, but if you look county-wide, you'll find those smaller parcels, undeveloped, probably around Valley Springs, Railroad, West Point, Mountain Ranch. You look between Copper and Angels, There's not much. There's bar 20, circle 20. We have a really good program countywide, FFA and 4-H. There is not around Angels spaces for those kids to live a rural life. My kids had to grow up in town because we didn't have, at that point, the ability to move out. A lot of kids, Angel Oaks, Greenhorn Creek, they're wonderful. If you want to live shoulder to shoulder with your partners. Kids don't have, in our Angels Camp area, or families, young families, do not have the opportunity to live on a 2-3 acre parcel like we have at Copper Cove. I believe, and the development is going to determine this. It's on, the road is good. We're right outside the city. We're we're adjacent on one part where there's 5 acre parcels, and the only thing that separates us is the vineyard between us and the other 5 acres around Dogtown Road. So I would like the designation changed from working lands back to a designation that does allow eventual splitting into 5 acre parcels. This property will probably be eventually sold because there's 4 owners. They're going to sell it. We're going to be forced to sell. So.
Any questions of Ms. Little?
The RTB that you requested, isn't that 10 acres or is it?
That's 5. 5.
Yes, that's right.
And what you have on it right now is 20s.
Any questions of Ms. Little right now? No, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address this land use request?
Do you want me to do my other one now?
No, let's do one at a time. Let's not confuse the issue. Thank you.
I'm all for the 5 acre ranchettes. I think they serve a purpose. Even if it's not for the young kids that can't afford to buy 20 and 40 acres, the 5 area is a nice rural lifestyle for them. But I think it also serves other purposes, and the 5 acre ranchettes are a nice addition to, I think, that community. I don't have an issue with it.
I agree.
And it's the RRX is put on there for a reason, and that's because it's like it was an agreement between the subdividing to a lower acreage at some point in the past that was agreed to by the neighbors, basically saying, yeah, kind of, everybody weighed in, we'll give you this, but when you get this, you need to give us this in return. Which was the promise, basically, that there won't be any further subdividing. And I think that's important, and they agreed to it, and that, should be held to that, from the standpoint of, just in terms of the neighbors, and for, to me, like a deal was made. And again, I think there are, this is not the only last developable parcel in this area.
No, but it kind of fits in because it's just the outskirts of town. It's not way out off the back 40. It's near town. And that RX can be addressed when they decide to go and do a subdivision split through an amendment, because they have working lands now. So they still have the RRX, but they still have working lands on it. And I'm okay with going to the RTB because they'll have to work out whatever that agreement was when they get ready to draw their maps, but that's up to them to figure that part out in their zoning. I'm not changing the RRX. I'm just saying, hey, I think 5 acres is a great idea for that area, and the owners, whoever it may be at that time, comes forward, will be the ones to have to figure that out.
Well, again, so you're when the time comes, it's the argument is already in favor because the general plan now says this is acceptable. it's in conflict with what the limitations were put on the zoning, but you're ignoring that.
But the limitations in the zoning are still there, so they're.
So then what happens?
So then they have to go through the process.
What is in 96, SOI-AC?
Sphere of influence?
Sphere of influence. So the county designated that area that was within the city sphere to sphere of influence. And so whenever there is a development that's in the sphere, basically we have to work with the city to, if there's going to be development, that it gets annexed to the city, and the city provides, so we work together to analyze any development proposal.
I'm good with RTV.
May I address that RRX?
Sure.
This happened, as I said, in the late 70s, early 80s. It was a 3-parcel split. The parcel to the west was quitclaimed over to our partner, where we bought it. He divided it into, I don't know, there's 5s, and there was a 20 there, 3 5s or something. And then he built his home there. The agreement was, and I'm the one that screwed it up, that my husband and I would get the parcel, one of the parcels, and we'd sell the other one, the 40s.
One of the parcels?
One of the parcels. See, there were 3.
Right.
See the blue?
Yes.
Went from Dogtown Road to...
Yes. That you would get one of those parcels?
Yeah, we were going to get one of those. I screwed it up, and I thought Donnie wanted the middle one, he wanted the other one. So anyhow, that never happened. Our partner passed away, and at a sale, we acquired other partners. So it just sat for 20, 30 years. I'm sure the other partners and probably our kids will want to sell it at some point. The RRX was a zoning, and I couldn't even tell you why it was put on at the time. Most likely they called it a holding zone at that time. You got to kind of remember that, mid-70s, Peter, is when they even started parcel maps. This was kind of the beginning of the parcel map process. And RRX became then, I think, 5-acre minimums in that 40-acre parcel to the west. And the reason we're asking for it to be accepted in this general plan is, why do you, if it's future residential, future development, why do you want to put a person through the other step of general plan amendment? It just doesn't seem logical. If you think it's going to happen in the future, and I think that will, because I think that parcel will get sold and developed, and it fits your criteria, try to get it right the first time, is kind of my theory.
History changes too. And history changes.
Right.
And we talk about our infill areas and we talk about our development areas. Those areas grow, and as they grow, we expand on it. And I would love to see those not be like 300 parcels on one little lot, and going to 5-acre parcels, I think keeps the rural character around the city.
Yeah, you've got the 5-acre parcels to the north of it around that lake, and that was probably within the last 15 years those developed.
Ted?
I don't have any problem with it at all.
No.
I was just doing the map there. To me, that makes good sense, because I hate to see that all be little teeny squares, Yeah. The 5-acre business is a good move.
All right, sounds like we've got consensus like on RTB.
So it raises a question now. So these 2 parcels here are changed to RTB, and we've got this little strip of working lands then that's surrounded by RTB. Does it make sense just to have this whole area RTB?
I agree.
You got 3 heads nodding, so
Okay.
yes.
Okay. If they don't like it, they can get mad at Nancy.
Well, or they can just leave it the way it is and not do anything with it.
So Nancy, do you want to come back up and talk to us about your other parcel?
This is
64, 13, 30?
30. This is parcel that's been, it was patented by H.O. Whittle in the 1860s, so it's been in the family since then. At this point, we've been working on it for 30 years to quiet the title because it went to like 37 different relatives, so we've been buying everybody out. And it's not that our intent is to divide this. We would be living out there now if we had quiet title. My intent is to allow the next generation to live there without a, as you put it now, with a 40-acre minimum, you're forcing us to parcel it in order to allow, say, my 4 kids or even 2 of the kids to live there. That's one parcel. It's always been one parcel. It's off Whittle Road. I don't know whether they call it Whittle Road now or Glory Hole Road. And then, as I explained in my letter, Old Whittle Road comes into the old ranch. It's been abandoned by the county for maintenance, but retained as a public road. There's around it varying different acreages, probably going from, there might even be a 7 or 8 or 10 down there closer to the lake. It's not in any public water district, so it would always have to be well or septic unless the city at one point talked about bringing water, but I think that's really too expensive to bring water out there. It's bound on the north and west, or east, I guess, with the working lands, and we would like a change from resource production to working lands. That ranch, how we use it, is you could probably keep 8 head of cows on there year-round, if that's how you wanted to run them. We rent ranches around it. Generally, we put our heifers out there, feed them, because 160 acres in that area does not grow enough feed, so we feed the heifers for the short time we have them there, or keep it for horses. These ranches in this area, unlike the rest of the county, didn't start breaking up until Maloney's went in. And then everything to the west of it was one ranch. And as soon as Maloney's went in, they took that, they made it uneconomic for that family to continue ranching out there. So that's when that ranch sold. Any questions?
Yeah, so this is 170 acres,
Yeah,
and you want
20,
to,
the 20 acre. It's at now, as it is, it would be resource production, 40 acre minimum. We would like it working lands, which is a 20 acre minimum.
okay, and the purpose for that would be because we just got through describing about...
I would like to have my kids have a place to live, or grandkids. You don't want to give one 160 acres. They're not going to make a living on it anyhow. If the grandkids or kids could live, I would prefer them to be on a 5 acre and keep more of it open. But that's our desire, to keep it in the family, but at least give the descendants some place to live out of town.
So now you could have 4 parcels.
I could split it into 4 parcels. I would rather split it into 320s and the rest,
Can I see bigger?
basically.
Pardon?
Can I see bigger on that?
And let me just ask Nancy, is there anyone with us that wants to discuss this land use request from Ms. Whittle? No, okay. What's the dark green, is that?
That's the public land.
Okay.
That's the New Woodlands Reservoir.
Okay.
And the light green adjacent towards Angels Camp
Working
is
lands?
the working lands?
Yes. We've got working lands here.
So we got a checkerboard here a little bit.
We've got resource production sort of in between, and here's the public land here.
You know, when you get into the little towns and you look at the map and you've got commercial, residential, it's just total mixed use and there's no way of trying to straighten all that mess out in the little towns, that's worse. That is terrible. Nancy, did you do all that?
No.
So this is the fairground.
terrible?
The fairgrounds here. This is the commercial area in front of the fairgrounds. The Gun Club Road comes in towards the top here. This is Glory Hole.
Well, you just,
Road.
Really, Maloney's did what you see there.
yeah.
When Maloney's went in, they bought 300 vertical feet from the high water mark. That took the Whittle lands, or in the dark green, took most of Smokey Arola's land out there, with the exception of what is adjacent to us. And it took most of Tone's irrigated land. So it took Smokey and Tone's irrigated land. It made it not economical for them to ranch as they had been. And that's why I believe a lot of that green is a result of boundary line adjustments.
I personally see a lot of working land out there already. I don't see that as much of a step down compared to resource production. I mean,
Well, do they currently, under the 96 plan, have the ability to 5 acres?
So 5 acre, right.
So asking for working lands at 20 acres, I think that's kind
Pretty
of
reasonable.
making a kind of middle of the road
Compromise.
request.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's backing up to 20s, or the possibility of 20s on their land uses.
Ted?
To me, the advantage of the big parcels is obvious. It helps keep ranch land being that. But the ability to utilize it more effectively by having your house on a 3 acre or 5 acre piece and have more open range also makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So are you in favor of this request?
Yeah.
Okay. So it looks like you've got 3,
Thank you.
consensus of 3. All right. Shall we try another one before lunch?
Oh, maybe not.
Let's see. All right. Oops, wait a minute.
Maybe if there's no one else in the audience who's not already on the list, we can go back to,
Isn't it Barrett? Bowers?
I have, did we talk about David Peters on page 5?
Oh, hold on.
Usually,
Did we miss one?
No, we haven't done David Peters on page 5.
What we went past? Oh, because we were doing Willows and jumped. Okay.
In Burson.
Got it.
All right, tell us about David Peters.
too. Let me see if I can remember. So this is an area that we looked at a couple weeks ago. Just zoom out a little bit. You may recall that we this is an ag preserve. We did change these two pieces here to RTB. He's requesting RTB. This is within the...
Which parcel are we looking at now?
This one here.
Okay. And that's in the ag preserve right now?
It's in the ag preserve right now. It's accessed off of Burson Road via Hybach Road. I think it comes down this way. It's within the California tiger salamander habitat, critical habitat area. This, if I zoom out, it sort of gives you, again, that sort of odd checkerboard pattern that we makes it so challenging in this area.
Can you throw down the overlay with possibly the habitat going over it again, please?
Is Mr. Peters with us today? No. Okay.
The whole thing.
So all but this little western corner here, or eastern corner of the property is within habitat area.
He can build there. Not hearing public comment yet, but being in that tiger salamander area, and that one side we kind of had a hole we could fill. This kind of takes that resource production into a bigger picture for me. I know he's got that one little corner, but if that's the area he can build in, what would be the sense in splitting that? He can build in that space and keep that other space in the habitat solid.
The other thing to think about is it's in the Williamson Act.
Correct.
We're 10 years. This is a 20-year plan.
Yep.
We got lots of, again, we have a lot of supply for the projected demand. So I'm inclined to not be in favor of his request. Is there someone with us today that wants to address this land use request? I'm sorry, what?
Yes, you're asking for public comment?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. I wasn't sure about that. Thank you. Let me see. I just want to, okay, can you point out that, zoom in just a little bit more?
This piece
Yeah.
here.
Okay, so that piece, and then just to the south of that, the light green to the south of that?
This area here?
Yeah, that's the Cane Ranch Conservation Easement. So as you said, Lisa, this is part of, still a large area that people are trying to preserve in ag lands. So I do encourage you to, keep that in resource production since it is in Williamson Act. And it is part of a larger area that I think I counted about 16 to 18 parcels in there that are remaining large agricultural sized parcels that, you don't want to start just chopping up the edges of that and ending up with nothing. So I would encourage you to support the staff recommendation on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Further discussion? So I'm in support of keeping it RP for the
Staff.
reasons I stated.
Staff.
Likewise.
Agree.
Okay, so we've got consensus on keeping this parcel RP. Shall we have lunch, or do you want to tackle another one?
Let's do lunch.
Okay.
Can you eat lunch this early, or do they not serve yet?
No, I think they start 11:30. Oh, at 11.
Okay, well, let's
All
go
right,
to lunch
so
and get back.
we're going to recess for lunch. Should we make it a longer lunch? Should we get one? Is that good?
Extravagant, yes.
Yes, yeah.
We've worked hard.
Get some work done.
All right, so we are recessed till 1 o'clock.